Reboot It!
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Swallow, and welcome back to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today we're talking about one of the craziest episodes we've ever done. Let me do that again. Today we are talking about one of the craziest episodes we have ever done on this show, Ace Ventura. So let's talk about how this one came about.
Oh man.
This has to be a Billy special. Is this a Billy special? Is this a Ron special?
Hold on. Hold your horses. Yes, but it was in a comment. Someone was like, you guys got to do Ace Ventura. And I think Ron and I both said, yeah, we should. And then it was one of those, just like we were after recording one of them. I can't remember which one. We were just like, what holes do we have to fill? And then Ron and I were just like, how about Ace Ventura? Someone just asked for it. And nobody said no. Nobody said that's not a good idea. It wasn't until like a couple days before we were to record it that I think we're all like, oh man, how do we do this? This was a terrible idea.
We were really high.
Know.
Wait, we were really high on the idea that, like, you know what? This time through Reboot It, we don't say no to anything. It's all on the table. And again, the person who really spearheaded that, Billy Business. So I just want to put that all at his feet.
Yeah, but
well,
to be honest,
I don't bat 1,000, guys. I'm sorry. Sometimes you just gotta swing.
Dude, but I like the challenge of this one, by the way. Like, I really enjoyed the challenge of this because I just thought it would be so hard to reboot something so classic and so specifically geared towards a star and like all of the stuff that's involved with it. I thought, man, this is a good challenge, and that's why I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. And we don't do comedies very much, which is interesting, seeing as how literally all of us are hilarious. So
I think, just to speak to that real quick, I think one of the reasons that comedies are hard to do on this show, and I think this Ace Ventura episode speaks to it, is that when you're pitching comedy, you're more just pitching gags. Like, you create a story skeleton, but then the craft of writing a comedy is in making it funny. So the story structure needs to be kind of, I don't want to say simple, but it's like, you're essentially just story structuring so that you could hang a bunch of gags on it. And it just doesn't fit the cadence of how we usually do the show. But maybe we should, figure out just a little bit of a different approach, which, by the way, Ron, you really keyed in on early. You were the first one to be like, hey, maybe we just start with casting. And I think as the person who's like kind of guiding the ship or hosting the show on the normal episodes, I got a little bit tight in the chest because I was like, it would be very easy for us to just say, let's cast Tim Robinson. And then we just pitch Tim Robinson sketches the whole episode. And I was just like, I don't know if that works for this show. You could tell me I'm wrong. Like, let's hash it out here. But that was my feeling.
No, I don't have a problem with that.
I think it was more just like we had to pick a lane, right? It was like, are you going to try to match Jim Carrey's funny energy? Or are you going to try to get a different funny energy? And then we ended up going with option C, which was like, what if we just go the complete opposite way? But I do feel like that was the right question to ask. Was like, before we get into anything, it's like, how do you know what kind of gags to pitch if we don't know who we're pitching this for,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that was my thought process. Well, and especially because, like I said, Jim Carrey made that movie. That movie is for Jim Carrey. It wouldn't be Ace Ventura without Jim Carrey in it, in that specific style that it was in. And so that because he was such an integral part of it, the movie, in my mind, it needed to be discussed. Like, okay, are we trying to make another vehicle for someone funny, like Tina Fey or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, whoever it would have been, I just picked Tina Fey because I love Tina Fey, but like, it could have been a variety of funny comedians. At some point we bitched Taylor Tomlinson for something. I actually would have been okay with a Taylor Tomlinson pet detective, but like it's just
the problem with that was because Marcelo Hernandez was one that we kind of all were like, ooh, that's kind of interesting. The problem is, like, I just don't know who would take that role, because you're gonna come off like a direct to DVD sequel no matter what if you're not Jim Carrey. Like, this would be the least desirable role. I think I even said on the episode, I was like, the IMDb trivia for this movie, if you did just a straight kind of Ace Ventura as Ace Ventura, the trivia would just be a list of actors. It's like, this is a list of the actors who passed on the role. All these comedians that were considered that passed on the role, because like no one would be dumb enough to do it.
That's not to linger, but I feel like that's a really interesting point that speaks to sort of the kayfabe of this show. Like, you literally could not, as a producer, go out to talent and be like, hey, we want to build an Ace Ventura around you. Because to Billy's point, literally everybody would say no to you. I think in order for that pitch to have any weight on a real professional level, you would have to go to people and say, look, we're going to build a new Ace Ventura, but here's how it's different, and here's how it justifies its own existence. Because everybody would have that skepticism that Billy was just speaking to. And so, like, from pitch one, from the very first conversation, like before you even get into why it's different, it's just like, here's why we should even try this, because it's gonna be different in these ways. And I think that that's just a nice little bit of Hollywood inside baseball that is worth keeping in mind when you think about a project like this.
Well,
Well, and I
and
think
that's
we
why
did
you're
that.
producer Bill, and I'm a guy with a cat shirt on.
But no, I just want to speak to what Bill was saying in regards to the realistic way that it would go out. I think in the end it would be somebody who, like, was very close to some comedic person, and that comedic person liked the concept of trying to do Ace Ventura over, but like the challenge of sidestepping the Jim Carrey performance. And so, like, to Bill's point, it would be about, okay, this is why it's different, and that's why what we did was different. The changing it into a series, which may or may not have been a great idea, but like changing it into a series, making it more of a slow burn, putting him more in the culture of California and the culture of movies and movie animals and stuff. All of that, as funny as it sounds, it's so silly when I just say it out loud, but like all of those are actual, like, real story touches that if you were presenting it to someone, I think would make it stand out versus, oh yeah, we're gonna make a bunch of new gags around this guy who falls down good now. The new guy that falls down good, he's gonna fall down with like apes and fall down with orangutans and stuff. That sucks.
Yeah.
That
Instead of coming
sucks.
out of a rhino's butt, he's gonna come out of a cat's butt, and it'll be
Oh, that
funnier
poor
because
cat.
it's a smaller butt. Come on, come on.
It's airtight,
Yeah.
literally.
We didn't do that, and I congratulate us for that at the very least.
Okay, fair enough. Now we don't do a lot of comedies on the show. We mentioned this a second ago, but now, do you think that this episode help or hurt that fact? We got to do more comedies, guys, or are we jumping off the comedy train for good now?
No, I don't think we're jumping off the train, but to what Ed just said, which was, I think the biggest mistake that we made was making this a series. I think that was a mistake.
Yeah.
I had said when we walked away with the final pitch, which we'll get to in a second, when we walked away with what it was, I was like, you know what? If that had been an SNL digital short, a 3-minute SNL digital short, that would have been Chronicles of Narnia, Dick in a Box. It would have been right up there with the top SNL digital shorts of all time. The more you start to like get it, like the longer that you make the story, the longer that you keep doing it, the less funny I feel like it gets. But man, the concept we came up with is killer. And I absolutely could see when a new season of True Detective comes on SNL doing this exact thing as a digital short. As a series, as a movie, I think it just I don't think the joke can last that long. Like truly, I don't. But if with our Pokemon episode, we kind of got outside the box in terms of what Reboot It is pitching and what kind of products we're making. So no, I don't. I would love to take another comedy and be like, okay, let's not. It doesn't just have to be a movie or a TV series. What else can we do with this? And I think that would be more exciting
interesting.
at this point.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
I also think comedy TV writing is so specific, and like it's a hackneyed, it's a worn out reference. But like if you look at either Seinfeld or Friends, and granted this wasn't a true sitcom, but I think a lot of it still applies. What you're actually pitching as far as story is threadbare. There's not much to it. It's literally just all in the jokes and the character dynamics. And those are things that, like, to get a full season of television, that's why you would put together 15 writers in a room for 20 weeks, because that's what it takes to actually break a season of comedy television. So like that's why I think that it's a little out of our wheelhouse, because what we do in this show is like the thing that, yeah, a couple guys who are co-screenwriters would do. That's what we're showing you. I just think that like a comedy TV series is biting off more than we can chew.
Yeah,
Sure.
I just to real quick, just to speak to that point, I think I do agree with that, but I also think that, like you said, it's like really about the threadbare story and setting up a story framework. And I do agree with Billy that I like the challenge of us extending our powers to doing that. I mean, we did it successfully with the Terminator series, which I think is one of our best episodes of all time, and I think even then we didn't try to make it a sitcom, that has 22 episodes all jazz. We did try to make it a limited series, and I will cop to bringing a little bit of that weird, and I didn't even watch it, but you remember when they made that serious ass Fresh Prince show? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like I brought a little bit of that energy to it. I think Bill will cop to bringing a little bit of that to it too, to be like, okay, if we make it like a noir thing, like a real noir show with these stupid ass animal gags. I'm sorry, guys, that's funny as hell. Like Billy acknowledged it, we all acknowledging it. That whole thing is very funny. Now, how much we could stretch it, yeah, definitely to be determined.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling was, and this was probably wrong, but the thing that clicked for me ultimately was when Billy brought up American Vandal, and the idea of like, all right, that show took a murder mystery investigation and stretched it into a limited series, and did it very effectively by essentially aping the tone and the style of true crime, limited series. And so my feeling was like, we could figure out how to do that with a true detective style show, but I don't know that we actually did it in the runtime of our episode.
No, we did. It was perfect.
All right.
Okay, so you know what? This wasn't part of our plan for Reboot Rewind, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Off the dome, if you're going to reboot a comedy, off the dome, what's one you would want to try to reboot?
I would love to try to modernize like Revenge of the Nerds. Just because nerds has such a different connotation now, and that other movie is beyond problematic, that I feel like we could revive it and refresh it.
That's interesting. That's a good pull.
Off the top of my dome, my pitch is Revenge of the Nerds horror movie, because that's what it would be like. I think that's interesting, because it's like, yeah, the concept of these people who are so put upon, and then they make this grand gesture to be cool, and it's just a series of saw traps and awfulness. I just think that could be really cool too. So I'm just throwing that out there.
That would be hysterical. When you say that, Ron, my mind immediately goes to like, I would want to pick a less successful comedy, because like you you could update Caddyshack or Police Academy or, any of these quote unquote franchises, but that starts to feel like the Dwayne Johnson Baywatch movie where it's like, dude, should we really be doing this? But if we were to do something like a Tango and Cash, right, which is like a buddy action comedy that kind of sucked, like we could make that better. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I kind of like that, and I know this isn't a comedy, but like along those lines, I don't know, man. Like I really think one challenge we need to do in the coming season is to take one of these one-off action movies that has a name and try to make it into something dope enough to be a franchise, which is the next frontier of this stuff. Is the one movie, make a good ass one movie and make that into a franchise. And along those lines, something like a Commando or
Krull.
Cobra or Krull, right? These things that had one shot, fucked it up, but have this name recognition and this cult following. I would love to grab up one of those jazzes.
I got a weird one. What about Bob?
You know what?
Great movie.
It's a great movie, but that's also a great call because I feel like that general premise can be stretched in so many different ways while not losing the spirit of the original. I dig that.
Yeah, that's the one that just popped into my head because I really love that movie, but I do think like a guy who's just like overstays his welcome and comedy ensues and infiltrates your life in the creepiest way possible, but everybody seems to love them for some unknown reason. Like that shit's funny to me.
I'll tell you what we won't be doing. I Love You, Man. Because that movie is low-key perfect. They slap at the bass. They slap at the bass.
But wait, did you? I don't want to derail this too much. Did you see the one that Paul Rudd just did with Tim Robinson? It was like the fucked up version of I Love You, Man.
I saw it. Yes.
I feel like that would be our reboot of I Love You, Man.
It. Wait a minute. Now that we're on the topic, I loved Friendship. I absolutely adored it, but also recognized, like, probably also because I went with my brother, sister-in-law, sister, and mom. There's a big group of us, family outing. My brother and I were cackling through the whole movie. All three of the women were like, "What the fuck did you bring us to?"
Gotta watch those trailers before you go. Don't go in cold.
That.
It would also be interesting to try to redo the old like college comedy thing, like your what's it? Not House, not Madhouse. What is it called?
Animal House.
Animal House. Those type of comedies where it's like a dumb college doing a dumb thing, party thing. Like.
Okay, so wait. Here's the difference, though. Every comedy that we've all talked about has been based around a concept, right? Whereas Ace Ventura was based around one performer, which was Jim Carrey, which is why, like, yes, I think we will do comedies again. Will we do something that is so singularly one? Like, you can't reboot Eddie Murphy Raw, like you just can't do it, like how do you reboot something where it's like that is who that person is? I think we took the only logic. Yeah, sure, that's a great one, right? It's where it's like, like that, it's singularly one joke and one performance, although I would argue Waterboy has more of a character arc than Ace Ventura. But it's just like there's only so many places you can go when it's even Waterboy, it's like the concept, it's like that can be retooled and maybe monitors a little bit, but it's just like Ace Ventura hinges on whether or not you think that joke is funny. And if that joke isn't funny, you don't like Ace Ventura. So it's just like, okay, well, if we're taking that joke, which is Jim Carrey doing the and out of it, like what is left? And I think that's where we started, which was just like, shit, like if you don't have the joke, what is Ace Ventura? And I'm just like, a great detective movie does on its face does not make a funny comedy unless it's not a comedy,
Yeah, I mean, look, we did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and that's one of our episodes that I think was great and did have good comedy. Was going to have great comedy moments in it, even though we told a really like heartwarming story. So I mean, we've done other things that are at least comedy adjacent, if not actual out and out comedies, and we will definitely do it again. Well, let's go ahead and move on and take a quick look back as producer Bill tries his damnedest to make sense of our Ace Ventura pitch.
Give me some slack on this one, guys. Give me some slack.
Yeah, seriously. None of this is your fault.
We have got an Ace Ventura reboot by David Zaslav's request. It is going to be called Ventura and take place up and down Ventura Boulevard, getting into the sordid history of Los Angeles, and in this case specifically, the sordid history of on-screen animals. Our Ace Ventura is going to be played by Joe Keery, going by a different name than Ace Ventura to begin with. He starts out as a young cop on the LAPD. He finds out that his canine partner, who he came up the ranks with, is actually corrupt. Tries to get justice and is turned down and throws his badge down in disgust, becomes a washout until the day when the star of some brand new reboot, because we're going to be self-referential with this, be it the new Lassie or the new Bonzo Chimp, whatever, is targeted for assassination, and the owner/handler comes to him and says, because of your history, you're the only guy that can help. And then he gets pulled into a tangled web of conspiracy involving the diver at an aquarium who trains the seals to put on the seal show. Maybe the seals are getting drugs from a monkey who sneaks in at night. We also talked about maybe somebody has trained a bobcat to go in and rip people to shreds. Maybe someone has released a python into the hills to go and eat some valuable dog. We maybe have discovered that there was a ring of people who at one point were kidnapping or killing star animals in order to traffic them to other rich people. There's all kinds of nefarious animal-related crimes that ultimately add up to someone. And in a twist, we find out, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, Ace Ventura's dad, who's a longtime animal trainer, who has enacted a sinister plot to train animals to kill. This is where it starts to fall apart, but we'll get there in the rewrites. to be showrun by the guys who did American Vandal. Also starring, in no particular order, Geraldine Viswanathan, maybe Hunter Schafer, definitely Michael Shannon playing a Steve Irwin caricature of some kind. There's room for all of your favorite serious, committed actors. Russell Crowe reprising his role from Craven as the you can't trust him father. I mean, the list goes on, people. If you didn't like this, if you didn't like what we had to say, get active in the comments, because I might be down there picking bones with some of this reboot. I mean, this one is all over the place.
I love that towards the end you're like, this is where it starts to fall apart. I'm like, have you not been listening to yourself for the past 2 minutes? This is where it falls apart.
Dude, I just
what do you guys think? You think it was good? Where are you at?
I just love that like Bill like disavowing this like Ethan Hunt towards the end. That's so funny. Me personally, like I said, I'm not gonna go full Ron Knight Rider on this, but I do think that the way to do something as ridiculous as this is to try to take it seriously, thus making it even more ridiculous, because you can't just on its face broaden the thing. You just can't, because of all the reasons we said. So that part I just feel was actually brilliant. Now I do believe that once we decided that the story was ridiculous, that it became Gagfest 99, and we came up with all that stuff. But I think each of those is how we would fill out a whole season of television. Like I think an episode about a frisky ape, like a poker face ass episode of about maybe 30 minutes. A poker face for 30 minutes with a dude trying to solve a case with an ape and gets a clue for the larger case. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that would work.
So here's where I disagree, though. I think Gagfest was the best part. To me, where this episode was just like, what are we doing? Was there was so much story that was pitched, so much story, and I don't know if it was because it was a combination of like we have to make this the best detective story and funny, or if it was like we have to fill out 10 episodes or whatever it was, but just like
that's what it was. The second one,
the gags were funny. The machinations of plot, I'm telling you, like Bill, I don't know, I don't even think that you summarize the plot. I think you just kind of cherry pick things that you could remember from the last hour and just tried to string together words. Like it made no sense. And that's, to my point, was just like even a 85-minute movie probably would have sufficed for this joke. A 3-minute digital short would kill. But I do think like it's interesting, as of this recording, it hasn't come out yet, but like the new Liam Neeson Naked Gun is taking the same approach of like put a serious actor, and the joke is that he takes it incredibly seriously, but the gags are so stupid. So I don't know if it'll be successful or not, but I think that is exactly the kind of tone that we're going for. But we'll see if it can sustain a movie, but certainly not a series.
See, I don't know if I agree with that, because I do think that I'm kind of on Ed's side, that like the shoe leather of I'm trying to solve a mystery and it's going to take me to the four corners of weird LA animal culture. You could get 6 episodes out of that. I think in order to make it justify itself, they would need to be extraordinary as far as like what we're satirizing. So we got into, it's like, you know, we skipped across the surface of a lot of things. Like we're at the aquarium of the Pacific and there's seals and there's drugs and there's monkeys. And it's like, that's the kernel of an idea. Could you make that funny enough for a good 30 minutes to justify that's a whole episode? I don't know. The same way I felt like, okay, there's boa constrictors loose up in the hills because rich people get sick of them and just let them go or whatever. That's the kernel of something that could be good. Would it be good? I don't know. But I think where I got wrapped up was like, look, if the majority of this series is going to be shoe leather tracking a mystery, we got to know what the mystery is. Like, we got to know what we're paying off at the end. And I stand by the fact that the thing that separates the original Ace Ventura from When Nature Calls is the freaking Lois Einhorn twist is really, really good. And like, from a story perspective, I'm not saying that, you know, the transphobia is good, but like this is the wildest, weirdest, but also makes a certain amount of sense, like wrap up of that story. It really works. And that's the thing that like we never quite even hit on an inciting incident that we all liked, let alone a wrap up.
No, there was like some real estate freeway building. There was kidnapping and killing famous animals. It just like there was like 6 or 7 different things. But what's funny is like as we kept going, we never discarded any ideas. We just kept adding them into.
Yeah.
So by the end, you had like 10 scenarios. It's like none of us knew what was happening at a certain point. And then, yeah, the vibe that night was weird. I'm not saying bad. Like no one was like bad or anything. But it was just like the vibe was strange. Ron couldn't stop laughing
at jokes.
I had some weird Andrew Dice Clay type attitude where I was like,
"Stop murdering animals."
That's hilarious, yeah. And it just was like we were all in like a bizarre headspace even before we started. So it was just like the weirdest episode ever.
I
Instead of the Mountain Dew crew, it was more like maybe the Baja Blast crew or something like that.
See, I think this is more of an illustration of what I was talking about at the top of this rewind, which is that pitching comedy, you exercise different muscles. Like even even the ability to redirect and say no to things when you're pitching comedy, it just feels different than when you're pitching the story mechanics of like an action movie or even a drama. There's part of it, it feels like, well, I'm not qualified to tell this person that they're not funny or that their joke's not good enough or that their setup sucks. But it's like you kind of have to do that. But even just the way you do that is different than when you're trying to break story for anything else. I just think that there's a, and frankly, like I don't have enough experience in a comedy writer's room to know how to do all that, but I do know that it's significantly different.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, look, like first off, I should point out that I do have the ability to tell you when your jokes suck. It's the one thing that I'm probably actually great at. So, um, no, but the other thing is, I just got to put in while you were doing the pitch, I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of did. I kind of enjoyed it. And let me also say, I thought that the pitch was that somebody was training animals to kill the president, and our guy had to figure out who was going to who was the guy training animals to kill the president.
That
And
was like
we just left that.
V1. That was like
Rid of that.
V1. And then by the end, yeah, it got
that's the
out of
simplest
control.
plot, because it's like that, and then he's talking to animals very seriously. This is one of the ones Ed talked about, was like how serious you take it. He's like really going, you talked about this too, like he's yelling at an ape, like, give me something, you know, like he's really like going to town on these. And that would be like, it's like they've discovered a plot and they don't know what to do with the plot. Like that felt good to me. But you're right, what we did was we had that, and then we started something else, and then we added something else, and we added something else.
It's because we tried to scale it down. I think the initial thing that kicked it off was like, why is Ace Ventura, you know, looking for a lost pet? What if he's trying to stop like you know, some assassins or something, and it turns out they're trained dogs or something. But then it's like we scaled it back because we made it like an origin story, and it's like, well, I don't think he would start with that mission. It would start kind of over here. But again, to my point is we never ever discarded that. It just was like, put that to the side for now and we'll get there later. And so like, yeah, it definitely like comes back up again. And to us, like it came up a lot more, but I took a lot of that out.
Yeah,
a lot.
We'll get to that question because that is the one we'll do. But I do have one more question before what you cut out, and that question is: do you think the Zaslav thing helped or hurt on this one?
I don't remember what the Zaslav request was in this one.
It was silly. It was like, well, it was Ventura, but it was also like an add in a dinosaur something.
Yeah.
And I think we just threw it away really fast. And it was, you know,
we made an argument that alligators are dinosaurs, I think is what we did.
Well, it's kind of coming back to me. He was the one who's like, this is going to be a love letter to LA. So the dinosaurs maybe came from like the La Brea tar pits.
But it had to be on the poster.
Remember? Okay.
So we had to incorporate dinosaurs, and then we're like, oh, there's some theme park or museum or something around here that we can have an action set piece at, which we never figured out what that was. We just said like, it'll happen, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think we cared at that point.
Again, it's like
adding the Ventura part in, so it didn't really help.
No. And I think that again, this is like part of this is just when you're trying to fill 6 hours, even it's a little bit like, well, we can't afford to scrap anything because it might be useful at some point. So yeah, it's unwieldy.
There's a real Depression era kind of clutching of ideas on this one.
No, and
holding on to it like it's toilet paper.
Dude, for real. And I really liked, like I said, I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I liked a little bit of that about it because I know that some of the episodes we're gonna have like 2 gags, like 2 or 3 gags to really make them work and stuff like that. So throwing away gags wasn't. Yeah, fuck it. They're like grocery store bags. Everybody's got a drawer full of them for no reason because you always think you're going to need them, or screws or nuts or whatever. So, or those Allen wrenches from your IKEA table,
Yeah, you could also use them to tighten up your rollerblades. So you got to keep those Allen wrenches. It's very important.
Yeah, dude. When I need to shred, I go into that drawer.
Then the other question, Billy, is like you had to look for again, kayfabe. This is a reboot rewind. Just let you guys know, like we edit, all the episodes. Bill and Billy usually do most of the editing because I'm not great at it, and they're more efficient. Like they can knock it out pretty quick. It takes me like days and days to get these things done. And most of the time we don't edit a ton out. We like keep most of everything in. But this episode, Billy, tell us a bit about how you had to edit this one.
Like I don't know about you, Bill, but I had said on a thing long ago, not only do I edit very little, I take almost nothing out. The only time I cut out content from an episode is if like someone drops off or their internet drops off, or like when Bill's trying to come up with a Zaslav. If it takes too long, we'll chop that up a little bit. But otherwise, I leave in warts and all. But like the Joker, tonight you're gonna break your one rule. This thing, I started to get into it, and it's like this makes no sense, and there are things in here that I think are like detrimental. So I took out about 20 to 25 minutes of content out of this. This was longer than The Godfather. This was over 2 hours.
The problem is now people are going to be doing hashtag release the business cut. That's the problem.
Well, let me tell you what you missed. First of all, I will take responsibility for this, which was we went down this rabbit hole of like, what if like these famous pets are getting killed and they're being replaced? And Ron was like, I don't know if it's a great idea if we have a plot line of like animals getting killed. And I started to make fun of Ron. The problem was, by making fun of Ron, I inadvertently come off as being very pro killing animals. So the conversation continues, and I try to then kind of be like, no, Ron, this is, and I lay it out very like eloquently why I'm like, no, I'm not for this. I'm just saying this is funny. But then just because I was being such a dick, I doubled down and made another joke that just made it so much worse. And it just derailed everything. So I took all of that out because it just painted me in the worst light. And I was just like, I'm not making it better by making jokes about it. And then the other thing, which I would say is 90% of what I cut, was we all at different points were like, okay, I have this idea. But before, let me just get this straight. And then we would recap what we thought was the plot for 6 or 7 minutes. And then that would start a tangent and be like, wait, what about when he does this? We're like, oh, yeah, this. So most of what I cut was us incorrectly recapping the plot. I don't think any of us ever were on the same page about what the story was. So I cut out chunks and chunks and chunks. And honestly, like when I sent it to you guys, I thought you were going to be like, hey, this doesn't really make any sense. No one said anything because it was so disorganized as it was that it still made sense in a not making sense way. So if you want to see that longer cut, I don't even know if it exists, but that's literally what it was all of us trying to figure out like, wait, what are we talking about? Like, the funniest one was like Bill was trying to do a casting thing and he was like, Ed, what do you think about for this girl? And Ed's like, so I think so if Ace Ventura first goes into the thing, it goes on for 7 minutes, without ever answering the question, and we never go back to it ever again.
Sounds right. Definitely sounds right.
I would definitely cop to that because, like, honestly, at that point, I think I remember that actual digression, and I was like, I do not understand the story anymore. I didn't understand the character I'm being asked to talk about. So let me filibuster till I remember.
Yeah, I don't know
never
if it was
did.
7 minutes,
remembered.
but it definitely, like, when I added it all up, I was like, if I just take out everybody not knowing, like, it literally shaved off about a half an hour. I was like, all right, let's just release the way I saw this episode. I was like, every time we come, like, we put out an episode, it's like we're a band, we're the Beatles, we're putting out an album. This episode was like, do you want to hear just like a jam track? Like, we just all came in one night to jam in the studio. I think this is the worst episode you could show someone if they'd never seen our show before. Like, I wouldn't watch our show after this. But if you're a real fan of us and you've been with us from the beginning, I think it's a fascinating, like, what do you guys look like if you're just dicking around and just kind of punch drunk a little bit?
Well, a problem I have, and this is just a thing with my brain, is like if someone says something really funny to me, one, it won't stop being funny for nigh on an hour. And two, I cannot stop thinking about it. And because I can't stop thinking about it, I'll stop listening to what people are saying and just think about the funny thing that's in my head. And like when you started when you started talking about, it's still making me laugh. When you started talking about like a cat with a machine gun.
So, yeah. That was like the first 10 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
It's still living rent free in my head today. Every once in a while, I'll be driving around thinking about a cat with a machine gun, and I'll cackle to myself because it was so funny in a context to me at that moment. Just picturing some grassy knoll with like a cat with some headphones on, some bullet deadening headphones, and maybe he's got like the telescope rifle he's staring into. It's taking the breath. I don't know. It just was so funny to me that
you're doing it right now, Ron.
Yeah, literally waxing poetic.
It's just, and that's a problem with my brain sometimes when we're doing something like this, especially in a scenario like that, because then I'm just thinking about this hilarious cat with a machine gun, and that was the entire episode for me.
Yeah, I didn't get enough. Just real quick, I didn't get enough dolphins planting bombs and doing tricks and stuff.
That was great too.
Come on, man, that's dope. And they really do that, and they're degenerates. So like Ace Ventura, like catching a dolphin on like some sort of dolphins are creepy, you know what I mean, and just being able to extort them. That was the dolphin.
It paused.
Yeah, the dolphin
froze, and then
all we heard was like dolphin, and then you're like, dolphins are creepy. That's just like, yep, this tracks for the energy of Ace Ventura. Like, you don't need to fill in the gaps. You don't need to fill in the gaps. It doesn't matter. Yep,
that's fine.
That's perfect. We got it. All right, so well, in this reboot rewind, we did not blow ourselves as much, even though I will stand by how funny it is with a cat with a machine gun.
This goes in the Ron Swallow Hall of Fame for Reboot.
Yeah, 100%. And let's get to some of these fan comments, huh? What do you say, guys?
Let's do it.
All right, so the first one is Count Geekula 9143. Also, great name. I assume the 9143 is just because there's other Count Geekulas, but those people aren't as cool as you, 9143. So this is what Count Geekula said. He said, there is no Ace Ventura without Jim Carrey. It's a very specific thing to which Billy responded. And yet we found a way to tell the story without him in a way that doesn't step on what he did or try to give a cheap imitation of it. You can't out Carrey Jim Carrey. So what do? You run the other way and do a 180 tonal shift.
I mean, to me, that was like the only logical choice, right? Like exactly what, and his comment, I don't know if it was him, their comment was exactly why we went the way we went, because no matter what, that's exactly the sentiment that you would get. So what do? Well, you turn around and like, how do you take this the complete opposite way, which is if Ace Ventura is very big and Jim Carrey's very big, then we go very dry and we go, the tonally very different. And so, yeah, that was the only way that I could see out of this.
It should also be noted too that like just because we put out an episode does not mean that we condone rebooting the franchise. Like, just to be fair, nobody here is saying it would be a good idea to reboot Ace Ventura at all. So don't take that away from it. But I will go on record of saying the worst idea would be to get 60-year-old Jim Carrey to talk out of his ass and say, all righty then, with a pompadour right now. So that's what you don't want.
Right.
Yeah, and he wouldn't do it.
I don't think he would.
I guarantee it. And I like what else were we supposed to do? I think that like that was the only decision to make in that scenario, and I guess that was the challenge in the first place. Was how do we reboot Jim Carrey?
My only bone to pick with stuff like that, honestly, bro, it's like Patrice used to have this old bit about like if you talk to certain people, they can't imagine stuff. Like if you told your homeboy, hey, would you make out with a chick with no nose? And he'd be like, is she fine? Yeah, she fine. Maybe. And then you ask somebody else that's too literal. They go, how you breathe without a nose? What is going on? That's this type of person. It's like, okay, you can't even imagine a universe where this would be? Like that just boggles my mind. Why don't you just go and just nitpick all the spaceships out of Star Wars? Well, the hyperdrive. Just shut up with that. I don't understand. I do not get that at all. I don't get where that energy comes from.
But when you said would you make out with someone without a nose, I kept thinking about like my nose going into their lack of nose.
Me too.
And then I thought I wonder how they breathe without a nose. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know what
is the
eldritch universe
of
nauseating ridiculousness that
comes. It would be like the Red Skull, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And you could theoretically breathe through your nose for them because you're blowing air in their nose.
That's why I think this is an important comment. Okay,
it enhances intimacy. No, all I'm saying is like, but for real, and I had to amend the joke as people who know Patrice would probably know. But the whole point of that is what I'm saying is, like Bill said, this is not us saying. I know we've, as part of the kayfabe, be like, oh yeah, we can reboot things better than anybody, and certain projects like Star Wars. We do. We're the best. We're the best that I've ever seen, like making up new additions to that project. But overall, the intellectual exercise is to envision a world where this is going to happen, period. And we are tasked with doing it, period. And there is no choice. And the only choice we have is if we are going to be stupid and try to get 60-year-old Jim Carrey to come do it, or if we are going to be stupid and get somebody and make their make them into some clone of him and just clone it up. Yeah, that would be dumb. And you'd be right to castigate us for that. But to castigate us, even to chide us even a little bit for just going all the way away from that is antithetical to the ethos of the show. And I understand that maybe this is a new fan or something like that. So, whatever, but like, come on, man.
Or I don't even know if they watched it. To be honest with you, that comment could have come before they even started it.
Yeah, I think that could be. I really think that could be, and that's what incenses me is that assumption. And you know what happens when you assume that assumption, because of that lack of willingness to go. That's what's pissing me off. It isn't just the pedantic nature of stuff, because we get pedantic as hell on this show sometimes. It's just that knee-jerk pedanticism without actually going through it. That's what it.
I got to do a graphic that's, what really grinds Ed's gears, just so that we can like clip out these rants.
Perfect. We should do we should for sure have some of that on maybe like a just on for our rebooted channel. We'll just have an Ed goes on a rant thing, and we can call it grinding Ed's gears, and we'll have Toretto doing the fucking
dude, infinite content.
100%.
Perfect. Okay, so let's get to another one. We got Juan. What the fuck? Okay, Juan I 966. As soon as Ace Ventura True Pet Detective was uttered, we started cooking with gas. I can also so clearly picture the fake intro of the show as an homage to the True Detective intro with some rustic music in the background and silhouettes of different animals we'd see in the season, like a monkey cocking a Glock. And you know what? That's funny. Almost as funny.
That is really funny.
As a cat with a machine gun.
Dude.
I mean, once we got on that, and I think he's right. Once those words were uttered, we never looked back in terms of concept.
Yeah.
I think like that. This was one of those ones where even though it was a cluster, it's always fun when we all get on board with the same concept relatively quickly, and then we have the rest of the time to play, as opposed to looking at the clock and we're like, guys, we are an hour and change into this and we still haven't all agreed on what this is. Those are the tough ones, but I love the ones where we get on board real fast.
Agreed.
Yep. I got nothing else to say to that because it's just I really thought the concept was an idea. We didn't get there, but the concept of Ace Ventura True Pet Detective I think is great. So let's get to another one. We got IZ Han 2814. I was thoroughly entertained by all of this. I liked the Evan Peters suggestion during the casting, but I wanted to add another suggestion for Ace, Kieran Culkin. He's absolutely amazing at doing very fiery characters who can be over the top and then very serious later. His character Benji in A Real Paint went back and forth between zany and glum. It was really something special. Plus, if you've ever watched Succession, did I freeze?
No, Billy, you're freezing. Ron
I'm freezing.
Yeah, Ron has been totally good.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's take this again, and I can edit it clean. So just say, let's do another question.
Yeah, because I lost Ron, and I saw Billy.
I lost Ron
during
Ron's
thing. Huh. So that's
Ron
wild.
was super clean for me. That's weird.
Okay, let's just take it again.
Yep, let's just do it again. So let's do another comment. We got IZ Han 2814. I was thoroughly entertained by all of this. I liked the Evan Peters suggestion during the casting, but I wanted to add another suggestion for Ace, Kieran Culkin. He's absolutely amazing at doing very fiery characters who can be over the top and then very serious later. His character Benji in A Real Pain went back and forth between zany and glum. It was really something special. Plus, if you ever watch Succession, then you know just how wild and layered his Roman Roy can be. So I think Kieran would be great for a goofy, yet at times semi-serious Ace.
That's a good suggestion. I have no problem with that. I do think that Joe Keery, who we finally landed on, kind of like looks a little bit more Ace Ventura-y, but I have no problem with Kieran Culkin.
I think it's an interesting choice. Go ahead, Bill. You look more negative.
I do have a problem. I don't think he would get the tone. Just because, hear me out, very talented, very funny, very manic, love him in Succession, loved him in A Real Pain. So this is not an anti-Kieran Culkin thing. But from what I understand, Kieran Culkin works very loose. And when you hire Kieran Culkin, he's essentially just playing Kieran Culkin. That doesn't mean that he's not great, but like to ask him to embody the kind of dryness, like that Leslie Nielsen-esque commitment to the bit, I don't know that he could play this role without winking. I think he'd do a lot of winking because his whole shtick is like, can you believe this stupid bullshit? And like, I dig that, but I think that's the wrong fit for what we were talking about.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, like I think he's a pretty good actor, but I think you're right. The roles he did were like different versions of himself as far as the ones of what I've seen. So I think you might be right, Bill. You're pretty smart at this stuff. So
Hmm.
Ed,
Hmm. I'm in between both you guys. I don't think I'm as polar away from it as Bill. I think if he was cast and if he was the best that we could get, and we got a good director that was able to like massage his proclivities in that way, and we still had these rock solid gags set up, I think it could still be pretty good. But I kind of like Joe Keery's blankness. You know what I mean? There's something about like he doesn't seem to he's really uninflected actor. Maybe that means bad or something. I don't know. I don't think he's bad. I think he's not a try hard like we saw other homeboy from Stranger Things. Woo! In that Fantastic Four movie. Joe Keery, man. Joe Keery clears, dude, for me. That's
Joe Keery,
controversial. Didn't mean to drag that into this.
no, but Joe Keery has amazing comedic timing. Like he
Yes.
makes so much of those scenes in Stranger Things because he knows exactly what he's doing, and he's a little bit thick. He's kind of always the last one to the party mentally, but he knows that's what he's playing and he does it so well. I think he's got really sharp comedic instincts that I just like.
well, and he's the kind of guy like and a lot of when you audition for acting roles, one of the things they really really like nowadays is for you to not look like you're acting. Like they want you to be very naturalistic. They don't want you to come across as theatrical or over the top. Very subtle is like the thing that they're constantly saying, not only on commercials, but like in every acting role that I've gone out for. It's like, don't be over the top, be very subtle with what you're doing. And that's where the comedy will sell. And so, like, I do think Kiri is great at doing comedy that is that sort of subtle, like I'm just offhanded making a comment in a normal conversational tone, but just with enough inflection to let you know that it was a joke, you know?
Yeah,
So
it's
unlike
the
myself
twitch of
who
the
talks like
eyebrow.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's just like the blankness of his look. Like he just knows what he's doing with the material, which I can appreciate.
sure. So let's get to another comment. We got R2D Poo. Great name. Uh they should be a pet
Haha.
detective like the OG, finding/rescuing animals. Could be a Rush Hour vibe where a political figure gets kidnapped, and while the FBI are trying to find the human, Ace ends up unraveling the whole thing while looking for their Pomeranian, who the politician's ex-wife had hired Ace to retrieve pre-kidnapping or something. Whew. Okay, R2D Poo.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we had some version of that somewhere in the 1+ hour mark. Uh, All those ideas were in there somewhere. But yeah, sure. Why not?
Actually, yeah, I like it. I mean, that could be an episode. We'll just throw that in there and see if it gets through uh, the writing team. All right.
Sure.
All right, we got Get Shitty. Another great name. Another long comment we're abbreviating from Get Shitty. And we appreciate these long comments, by the way. So don't ever like stop writing these great ones because they're a joy to read. But we are going to shorten it up so we can get to it. So between mentioning What Jack Done by David Lynch, the neo noir, the absurdity that Ace would be kind of insane, the mention of Justin Theroux and it being prestige TV that satirizes current prestige TV, which is in part Twin Peaks, this is, almost in spite of itself, the Reboot crew's most Lynchian reboot. And that's it for Ace Ventura is fucking hilarious to me. Get Kyle McLaughlin in this bitch. Give Shane Schoenbrunn, I saw the TV Glow, arguably the most Lynchian director alive now, an episode to direct. Get one of the drugged animals to do a musical number that reflects past trauma of themselves and a place and a time. And I think the lack of cohesion is in the plotting won't matter. Man, Get
I mean,
Shitty
that's
got us
high
on this.
praise. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's high praise.
absolutely. I mean, and like, dude, I want to see a musical number in this. I'm down.
I do think that the identification of this as Lynchian, I think, is spot on. maybe I was the only one, but I think that's really where my mind was going without articulating it. And so, yeah, I mean, 100% would love to have Kyle MacLachlan in here as some slimy politician or whatever. You know, he always classes up a project. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I also, the Jane Schoenbrun call out is great as well. I just wonder, you don't want to lean too far into the Lynch because then it feels like you're doing a pastiche of Lynch. So it's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to lean all the way in, like if I was actually thinking about this as a producer. But a great comment nonetheless.
Yep.
Yeah, well, and you all know how I feel about David Lynch, so let's move on from that.
The less said, the better.
I'm in the same boat, buddy.
Well, but again, for a lot of our fans, this was Lynchian in that way as well. Just like,
I mean,
not
arguably.
for me. This is weird, but it's got its own quality.
It's true.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we got one more from Travis Kenzie, 3481. How about in a remake Ace Ventura Pet Detective movie, the pet detective could be a female Ace Ventura pet protector? Imagine if that happened and she was played by Kate McKinnon or played by Anne Hathaway.
I literally said this in the episode. I'm 90% positive that I called this out exactly. What you don't want to do, and what I would never put on any female comedian, especially Kate McKinnon or some, is the Ghostbusters thing all over again. We were so horrible as a society to those 4 women in 2016 because they dared remake a movie that starred guy comedians that we all loved. Do you think that if they took this pitch out and tried to get a female Ace Ventura, that again, it's like the IMDb trivia, how many people would turn this down and be like, no, I saw what you guys did to those Ghostbuster girls. I'm not doing that. That's a terrible idea. And I'm not trying to pile on you, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but real quick, Billy, you know who's on the list? I'm thinking of the list of the female comics to turn it down. Kate McKinnon's on the list. One of the Kate McCucci or somebody like that is on the list.
Yes.
From
Tig
Garfunkel
Notaro.
Notes.
Yeah, from Garfunkel Notes. Tig Notaro's on the list.
Taylor Tomlinson also turns this down.
Yeah, Taylor Tomlinson turns this down. There's that list of lady comics is long.
No, just that's
crazy.
This would derail 2 people. Like, first, you're gonna get your terrible I hate women crowd. They're not gonna like this. Then you get the female comedians that are like, well, we don't want to do this because we saw how all the harassment and everything from last time. This literally serves nobody to go that route. So that's why, and that's why I said that thing is like, I would not wish that upon anyone. And to a certain extent, like even male comedians, like they're not going to get it as bad as a female. But I don't think, like, Ghostbusters is one where it's like, even now, like they still have to use that old cast. They got to trot them out, even if they have to CGI them in there, their ghosts in there, because they know that 4 new comedians could not hang as like a rebooted Ghostbusters. No one's going to be able to hang as a rebooted Ace Ventura, especially a female, if you do it that way. And so I think we did the only logical thing to do was like, okay, well, it's Ace Ventura, but we're making it a different character and we're making it a parody of something else. That's the only way it works. And in that case, like, sure, it could be female, but I kind of feel like you kind of missed the joke a little bit if you gender swap on this one.
I agree with that 110%. And I think that just, again, is part of the show. Like, we're not thinking of this in a vacuum. Like, what if we lived in a non-misogynistic society that doesn't have knee-jerk reactions to, casting women in iconic male roles? It just is part of the discourse. And like,
especially now.
Right. And I don't think you solve it by ignoring it, which sucks. That does suck. But like, just doing more of it and like letting that cycle play out over and over again is not actually solving the problem. I would go so far as to say, like, here's two actresses that you didn't mention that I think are deeper cuts who would kill this in a Jim Carrey sort of esque way. Rachel Sennett, who I think is our most underrated comic actress currently. She's great. And Sarah Sherman, who's currently on SNL, but her whole comedic persona is like over the top, gross you out. She performed as Sarah Squirm and does all kinds of physical comedy and weird makeup effects and things like that. Would be awesome, but it would be caught dead in the center of the culture war. It would be denigrated and review bombed. It would anything about the movie or show would just be subsumed within that nonsense.
And to be clear, we don't like that and we're annoyed by it, but it is a fact and it does exist. So in those scenarios, you have to keep that in mind for people and just give them other original content to do that has nothing to do with these type of swapping things. And let me say, I really enjoyed that Ghostbusters movie. I thought it was funny. I had a good time with it. Wasn't the best movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly not the worst comedy I've ever seen. And I laughed through the whole thing. So like, you know, like why did we make a big deal out of it?
It works as a movie on its own merits. Like it does everything that it sets out to do in a perfectly enjoyable way. But again, that's not the issue, unfortunately.
Yeah. It just last things last on this subject that I would like to say is I don't think any of us would be averse to my super fresh idea to make Cobra or Commando with a girl. No, but which I would definitely do. Shit you not.
100%.
But the point is, it's the more iconic and comedic, those two merge in a way that really does mess the game up for a lot of fans. Male, female, misogynist, misandrist, whatever their political affiliations are. There is just something that sticks to people's craw of recasting iconic comedic performances. I don't think we get it as much with other genres, even though we do. But with that, it's hard. It's hard. It's a special
Although
case.
a really interesting ballsy way to do something like that would do, because we mentioned earlier movies we might want to turn into a reboot, turn into comedies or whatever. And we mentioned Animal House. It might be funny to do a satirical take on Animal House where you had where you made fun of that movie, but had the women characters playing those male roles like the male roles, but as women. Like that might be an interesting ballsy take, or a variety of that sort of thing, but satirically. But at the same time,
they've done that. There's Booksmart was kind of like that, and even the American Pie. They churn out those direct to DVD sequels. They've gotten to the point where that's where they are now, which is it's a group of girls doing it. So it's like, I think that's it's possible and you can do it and it's trodden out. But if we're talking specifically about Ace Ventura, I think it's the list of people who would turn that down would blow your mind. Even I think, like, as big of a fan of Sarah Sherman as I am, I think even she would have the brains to be like, there's no upside for me to take this role. So it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And that being said, Travis, thank you for,
Yeah, we're not piling on you, Travis, by the way, at all. We're just trying to lay out kind of like the realities, like the Hollywood of it all, where it's just like, we unfortunately kind of learned a terrible lesson from 2016, and that's just where we are.
Yeah. So like we said, though, we've said on Reboot Rewinds many times before, we really appreciate these comments. They help build up in the algorithm and let people know that stuff is happening over on this channel. So you putting comments like that really helps us out. But also, it's just fun to talk about. It's fun to read. It really makes us think. And you guys know we love this community here that we've created. So with that being said, for Ed, producer Bill, Billy Business, and I'm Ron Swallow, this is Reboot Rewind, and thank you for coming and hanging out. We'll see you next week.